Okay, didn't we have 9 human resources? Is that correct?
10.
10. I mean, excuse me, 10.
Yeah. The human resource budget is $2.4 million entirely operating budget. Now you can see that 2008 and 2009 had the large $2.5+ million for the employee performance incentives into it. And as you're aware, this has been shifted in 2010 out to all the programs for their incentive payments are out on their budgets. And so you see the effect of that on the funding source. Obviously, it's general fund where it came from, so you can see the impact here. This particular department is nearly entirely funded out of the indirect cost pool, with the exception for a small budget they left in for employee performance incentives of $165,000 for those programs that may not be able to accommodate those payments. Now that is quite a bit down from the 2010 budget for the departments that could not accommodate those incentive payments, and it's reduced from $475 to $165. Other than that, I want to make one point. It shows some new positions with 77, 3 new positions out of 31 total. Talked to Mr. Patel, and actually there's maybe been a classification error on there. Those are really existing, or vacant, excuse me. Those are vacant positions, not new. And this is, like I said, is indirect cost pool funded. So not a lot to report other than that on this group.
Is there any discussion on human resources? If not, we'll move to tab 11, management resources.
All right. Now, management resource significantly larger. This is a $19 million budget. It's compared to about $18 million. It's down slightly. You see these large unexpended blocks on this chart. A lot of that is the land acquisition budget. Remember, the land acquisition budget was funded from Arkansas Riverbed Settlement Funds for land to go back in trust, and those are what's earmarked.
Yes.
They're they're earmarked.
Reserved by legislation.
Okay. They're legislatively reserved. Of the $23 million in 2008, to give you an idea, 10 of that's this land acquisition. 7 on top of that is capital improvement reserve. So 17 out of the 23 is either land purchases or capex. The $17 million in 2009 that went unexpended, $5 million is land acquisition and $6 million is capital improvement reserve. HUD's contributing to some of that a little bit. We can get in a little bit later. But on the funding side of management resource, general fund is a significant component here because that's where the land acquisition monies from the settlement are. You can see that HUD has increased since 2009, and a lot of that is the unutilization of the HUD funds. And one of this is housing development. That's experiencing $3.7 million of that increase in HUD from the 2009 actuals to the 2011 budget. The staffing for this group, they obviously have a significant payroll, about $4.7 million. The 303 vacant positions is 9 positions, and there was 1 new, and that's all out of 118. These 9 vacant positions, 4 of them are in facilities, 4 of them are in natural resources, and 1 in risk management. Moving into the department analysis, the facilities management is the first department we talk about. It's experiencing a 30% decrease both in budget to budget comparison as well as the comparison to the 09 actuals. Budget to budget, we're seeing a drop off of the facility road construction budget, and I believe that budget may be, is that a decrease or completely removing? It's being removed out of the budget, as well as the property maintenance budget being decreased by $140,000. And old homeland building, I didn't have it in the commentary, but the old homeland building maintenance budget has been removed too. Comparison to '09, the internal lease pool operations, I point this out because it has a reverse effect. Whenever the internal lease pools in 2009 experienced an under recovery, now this is a recovery pool, so it's ending up with expenses in excess of its recovery of $353,000. And it's a break even.
Councilor Baker.
Doug, excuse me just a second. And I skipped ahead to page 6, but I'm seeing some budgets here like under management, privately funded, where it, last year we appropriated $89,000 and we spent $0, but yet we put it in again for this year, and then $29,000 for the emergency management disaster fund, and $156 for quality assurance. Now, we hadn't brought those carry forwards forward, but we're budgeting them again. Is that?
No, hold on.
Okay.
Just want to correct.
Okay,
if you will look at your report. Now, you're looking at page 6, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're looking at an $89,000 budget in the first column.
Right.
The next column is the 2010 budget. The third column is the difference between those two budgets, not what they actually spent. You'll need to turn to page 9 to see what they historically have been spending. And they have been spending that particular budget.
Okay.
Emergency management actually is showing an over expenditure, but again, in 2010, that's a projection. So they may have hit their budget, and I took their 100% expense and forecasted 2 more months of expenses, you see. So don't worry about the 18,000 decrease, but
Gotcha.
Or over expenditure. But you'll notice in 2009 they spent 83 out of 90, and then 72 out of 92
All right.
on the emergency management. Was there other ones you were?
Yeah, the quality assurance where they spent 92 of 156. I got you, but they were looking like zeros, and I was on the wrong line. Thank you.
Yeah, that group right there on tribal funds for risk management, if you look at, I guess that is page 9, the last 2 years they've done a really good job of, I guess if that's how you want to look at it, fully utilizing all their appropriated dollars. Where were we? Callie, do you have any comment on the internal lease pools under recovery from '09?
Well, basically, the lease pool is very similar to the indirect cost pool. We calculate a new rate every year, so the under recovery for '09 would go into the calculation for the following year. And we did see an increase in the space rate for 2010.
All right. Next department is Management Resource Administration, reducing their budget by 1/3 or close to $600,000. That's a one-time funding for the Bonita Clinic utilities, $598,000. That equals their variance. Compared to '09 actual spending, that budget '09 contains some economic stimulus funds for $844,000. Or actually, this budget contains economic stimulus funds for $844,000 that didn't exist in '09. For Department of Energy retrofit, that stimulus funds were awarded after FY '09, so it explains that $709,000 increase. The Natural Resource Department, we are seeing some large increases, $3.8 million or 35% compared to the 2010 budget. 1.7 of that is in the land acquisition budget, and the balance is in the HUD-funded housing development mentioned earlier on the overview. It's almost $10 million more than we actually spent in '09, and again, the land acquisition accounts for 5 of that $9 million. Almost $10 million, and the land acquisition cultural tourism another $1 million. So 6 of the close to 10 is related to those land purchases. The remaining, again, is on the HUD-funded housing development budgets. The next department, which is a new department for this group called Planning Development, they did have some budgets that were moved into this department, and they're budgeting a 50% reduction, or $1.4 million, specifically because of the capital improvement reserve build out of those projects during 10 that won't be repeated again, of course, in 2011. This budget is increasing over the '09 actuals of $558,000, partially because of the creation of the new department. But a lot of that's funded out of the indirect cost pool, $405,000. Risk management, the last department's got a slight decrease compared to the budget and small increase over '09 actuals. The budget decrease is in the state-funded hazard mitigation plan budget for 75 and a run out of the FEMA disaster relief of 70, and that 57,000 increase over '09 is actually it's a department's operating budget is increasing by almost 300,000, but it's being largely offset by the FEMA disaster relief that was existed in '09 of 284,000. So risk management is experiencing some, at least budget-wise, some operational increases. That concludes my report for this group.
Yes. Councilor Carter.
Doug, I don't know if this is the right place to ask this, but we have a tugboat down in Sawasaw. I think it's leased out. Do we still have that coming in?
Oh, we still have that tugboat?
I apologize. No.
I thought we sold that.
The tugboat is gone,
It's not.
as far as I know.
Where'd it go?
Anna? Shay
Sold.
says it's gone.
Several years ago.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking
It just disappeared?
No,
that. Or sank one.
it was sold. Shay reported that it was sold.
We had a lot of problems with that thing taking on water.
Councilor Snell.
Who's voting news, but
Doug, is this
Southern Cherokees?
the right place to ask about, up on tribal lands? We still got a big problem with, people tearing our gates up, like some of the lessees. Some of the lessees don't even, have dropped out. Like Johnny Osborne said he dropped his leases because he couldn't, they tear his gates down and put them up. Is there a way we can get any, a marshal or an officer of our own that just takes care of our properties? Can that happen? What do we got to do to make that happen?
One of the things that we have discussed in the past is the fact that natural resources may need to look into getting just a conservation officer, because our marshals are spread so thin trying to cover all of the counties that they can't be just on our tribal lands all the time. They can try and make a better presence, but long story short, that is a battle that we've been fighting since I've worked here, because you can't be every place all the time. So there has been conversation in trying to bring on a conservation officer, so that just may need to be a measure that we look at. But again, if you just have one conservation officer, they can't be everywhere all the time. So I don't think we can ever completely mitigate the situation, but we could discuss that.
Maybe somewhere, some of the time. But, we need to work on that. Because the lessees, well, you know how it is.
We're having to install a cattle guard, and some of what you have to realize as well, on one of our units, we're putting a cattle guard in because there's a swimming hole that a lot of our tribal citizens like to go to on this one particular unit. And even though we've put up signs and we've gone to a community meeting and visited with them about these units are for their use. They're tribal land that we want our citizens to be able to enjoy, just like the lessees. But occasionally the gate will get left open and things of that nature. And we've had one of our lessees lose 3 cows because the gate keeps getting left open. So we purchased a cattle guard to try and mitigate some of those types of issues as well. So when we are apprised of something that's going on, we try and take the proper steps to try and mitigate some of those situations. But again, it's a battle that we've been fighting for years.
Well, should we put up a bigger pipe?
For sure.
Or just let it? Well, we might need to have, get our heads in, have some meetings, decide what we can do and will do. You know? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Councilor Buzzer.
Angie, I was looking at the budget for tribally funded land acquisition at $5.5 million. And then we had land acquisition, culture, tourism for $1 million.
Yes, sir.
That's $6.5 million. What is our plans for land acquisitions? And I know that the Arkansas Riverbed, we usually go I-40 south. But what about the tribal land acquisition dollars? Where are you concentrating those to be spent? And do we have that much land that we're going to be looking at $5.5 million?
Well, first of all, let me be clear on, we have two pots of money that we can acquire lands with. One is, or that natural resources can acquire lands with. One is our NAHASDA fund. The other is ARB. Those are the only two sets. The ARB funds, of course, as you know, they are not restricted just to the riverbed corridor that was delineated. So any tribal land acquisitions that we are making that are not related to affordable housing comes out of the ARB funds. Now, the $1 million that you see that is in a tourism budget that has been labeled tourism, that money was actually moved out of the AU that's labeled just for ARB and was scooted over so that money could be focused on making purchases that were strategic to tourism.
So they come out of ARB?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So when we are looking to acquire lands, we're doing it based on some initiatives. We look at it from the commerce perspective. We look at it for school initiative perspectives. We have an executive group that looks at those acquisitions that are from housing other than just affordable housing. They look at it from a commerce perspective, the school's perspective. I think there's a group of 5, the real estate division. So when we get a purchase that's either been brought to us or that we've gone out and pursued, that purchase goes to 5 people who evaluate that based on a criteria, and they score it. And then we come back and average those scores to see if it meets the minimum criteria to even look at it any further.
And the reason I bring this up is we all know over in housing we have HUD funds that can buy land, and we've bought several acres, and we have a lot of money for land acquisition. And at this point in time, we're looking for some tribal dollars, and I just want to point out that there's $6.5 million here that's out of tribal funds that is to acquire land.
But that money that is sitting there, those ARB funds,
Yes.
that money cannot be spent in any other manner besides to reacquire land.
Okay.
What, this $6.5 million is Arkansas Riverbed funding.
Oh, okay.
That's part of the original $20 million. That's
Right.
what is left from the ARB settlement, and it's just brought forward every year. It's restricted for land acquisitions.
Okay, I understand now. Okay, that.
Sorry, I wasn't clear, Harley.
Okay, I understand. But going back, just to follow up, those can be either put in trust if they go south of I-40, or if they come north of I-40, then they can't.
Any of them can be put in
Oh, is
trust.
that
You can
right?
do a trust application. Just those that
Okay.
are within that corridor, Harley, there is
Yeah.
a process that they call a fast track.
Okay, right.
To where I don't think they can deny us trust on them, and it's supposed to go a little quicker.
Okay. And I say all that to bring up the fact that, we have a lot of money for land acquisition, especially in the HUD portion of the finances here. So
Yes, sir.
I don't know. We're all trying to look at tribal funds and see where we can best spend those things out. So and we're looking to spend the dollars from the federal side first. So
Yes, sir.
we certainly want to make sure that's into our land planning acquisitions when we do that. And it sounds like you are.
Yes, sir, we are.
Okay, this cleared up some questions I had.
Yeah, the only funds that we spend out of ARB, whenever we get a tract that comes to us, we first look at it to see if it is NAHASDA eligible.
Okay.
And if it's not, and it's something that we strategically need, then we will look at it from the ARB side.
All right, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on management resources?
Thank you very much.
We'll move to Commerce Services, tab 12.
Moving now. Okay. Commerce Service has an $8.4 million budget. As you can see, they expended nearly all of that, or projected to this year. The one thing I want to point out is you see a significant decrease in its actual spending from 08 to 09. That's due to the landfill operations being shifted to C&B in fiscal year 09. That impacted it by $2.3 million. Also, there is a slight uptick in spending here in the current year over 09, primarily in the mortgage assistance program. And you can see by funding source that's largely in HUD, in the Indian housing plans. Their staffing doesn't reflect any vacancies or new positions for 2011. Now, there's only 3 departments here. The first one's the Cherokee National Holiday we just completed. The budget is just slightly under the 2010 budget of $33,000. Very minimal changes in the holiday budget, both compared to prior year and the 09 actual spending. It is a little bit over what we spent last year. The Executive Director of Commerce budget is 11% increased budget to budget, with an 11% decrease compared to 09. And compared to the 09, this department's funding, which historically has been from the general fund, is now requesting 75% of its budget to be out of the indirect cost pool. If this negotiation is successful, this is another good move here where we can move something that was consuming tribal discretionary dollars into the indirect cost pool where it's servicing out and charged out to all the programs. Small Business Assistance Center, very minimal decrease spread out across a lot of programs and funding sources as compared to our current 10 budget. At 6%, it's $470,000, but compared to 09 actuals, it's $1.6 million increase, or 27%. And the CDFI grant continues to largely go unexpended, and it's budgeting $516,000 compared to the 09 spending of $40,000. The mortgage assistance budget has a $5 million budget, and the self-sufficiency is $693,000. Both are significantly higher than what we actually expended in 09. And you can see the detail on the next pages. That's all I have, Mr. Chair, on Commerce.
Any questions or discussion on Commerce? Yes.
And Anna, you can probably, or Joe, you can, the $5 million that was put onto the mortgage assistance program, we remember we had to go back and reprogram some of those dollars because we were getting a lot more people apply for the mortgage assistance program. So that was the initial cost of that going up.
That's correct.
The other thing is the self-sufficiency program budget, $693, and I didn't see what it was last year right off. So what was it last year, Dave?
Almost 611,000.
Was it 611? Okay. So it is a little bit higher, but not that much. Okay, well that's one I want to make sure about the mortgage assistance program there. And that's fine, you know, I think that's helping a lot of people with the mortgage assistance program, and I'm glad to see that's been utilized, so thank you.
In last year's budget, there was 2 IHPs. It's $611,000 out of the 09 and then $64,000 out of the 08. This budget only includes the 10 IHP, the 2010 IHP. So we're always into this. Typically, this time of year, we're looking at a full year of budgeting and bringing forward all Indian housing plans that are available. Like, for instance, 2010, the year we're almost ending now. This thing's 2010's got, in this case, we actually have some dollars from a little bit out of the 07, a lot out of 08, 09, and then the 11 budget only has 2010 IHP funds in it. So as we move throughout the year, we'll see some more reconciliation of those runoff IHPs coming onto the table for wherever.
And I believe Marvin did
available.
Mr. Chair, I believe Marvin did a pretty good job on explaining the IHP for 11 in the last committee meeting, so okay. I'm okay with this unless there's other questions.
Any further discussion on Commerce Services? Not, we'll move to Human Services. Okay, 13.
Human Service, another one of our large service groups, of course. This is a $56 million budget compared to about a $59 million budget in our current year. you see that there's some obvious significant underutilization of the budgeted dollars. And as compared to the 2010 budget, that's a slight decrease there of $3 million. 2.1 million of that's in family and elderly assistance, and $500,000 is in the No Water Food Distribution Elder Nutrition Building. Unexpended dollars on this chart. There's the child care program in fiscal year 08 amounted to 5.3 million of that 9.2 million unexpended. In 09's 12 million unexpended, 10 of that 12 is the child care. In 2010, the projection, child care is projected to underspend by 8 million. Now the rest of the 2010, the 14 million more that's projecting out not to be utilized this current year, there's an anomaly in here because the food distribution program does not have the cost of the food in it for FY10 yet. They book it at the end of the year, so I had no numbers to forecast or project on. With that would account for 6 million, approximately. Rental assistance program is contributing to that projected underutilization of 2.7 million, and children, youth, and family service of 2.5 million. You look at it by funding source. You can see here they're spread out across DOI 102, DHHS, USDA, HUD, and then several other funding sources. The large increase on the budgets that stick out on the chart, obviously, is the DOI Law 102 funds, and 10 million of this increase over the 09 actuals is in that child care I just mentioned. Significant underspending. I'm still not sure. I've commented on several years in a row about why the child care program. I'm not sure if they're getting 2 years worth of grant funding into 1 year fiscal budget or exactly what the situation is, but there's something here. I don't have the information to answer it, but talking about the child care program underutilizing.
Oh, Norma, would you like to comment on that?
Doug,
You want to come forward?
Oh,
I said you want to come forward.
I'm sorry. $6 million of that is the funding.
Come on in.
I guess I don't want to be that close to you guys.
Understandable.
6 million of that are the funds that we've accumulated through carryover and to build the building in Stillwell. Is that okay? Jody? Our child care facility that I think all of you know that we've been trying to build for a number of years, and we are allowed to carry over monies for that. So that's what a big chunk is, and I believe there's 2 million of ARA, and we'll be carrying over some more to continue with that building that we hope to start next year. So that accounts for a lot of those big chunks. Does that help you, Doug?
Absolutely. I didn't know that. I'm going to write that down so I don't keep pointing that out every year. Okay, so we have a building we're going to build in Stillwell that the accumulated carryovers is going to be tagged to build that. Do you think there's...
Interest on 102,477, which is also
They won't let me take it away.
So there shouldn't be any financing needs on that capital.
It's okay.
we're trying to pay
That's good. We won't have any financing needs for this building.
We could look at
Nice concept.
we don't have health security and health.
I'm glad there's a big chunk there.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Norma or Doug, I have one question, and it's probably someplace else. It's on the stove, heating, and air conditioner assistance. It didn't have any money in 10, and Norma, you probably got that some other place.
Well, we had some extra special funding for lighting. We got more lighting than we ever had last year.
Yes, I remember that.
And so we were able to meet
Okay.
our needs that way.
Okay, and I remember that now.
We hope we'll get it again this year.
Okay, thank you.
Continue, Doug.
Okay. Okay, the salary and benefits, you see there's about $600,000 for new positions. This does have close to a $14 million payroll in this group. 20 new positions on that $500,000, and you'll notice that there's 1.3 million of vacant positions, which is 40 vacancies. Here's the position totals here. You see a slight increase here in staffing for the group. The new positions, those 20, 11 of them in child support enforcement, 7 in food distribution, and 2 in child care. The 40 vacancies, there's 21 vacancies in children, youth, and family services, 7 in child care, 7 in child support, and 3 in family assistance. A couple of these programs do have vacancies and new ones on top of that. Only 6 of these are discretionary dollars, by the way, for everyone's information. It's predominantly federally funded, all this staffing package programs as a whole. Child development, we talk about it. There's no need for me to go into explaining why they've significantly underspent their budget for the last 4 years. I think that just got explained in the capital plan. The child support enforcement, which is a new department for this group, its budgets that were moved into this department is relatively flat, only a 5% increase compared to the previous budget. It's 89% increase, or $1.5 million over the 09. And again, it's due to low spending in 09 on its programs for child support enforcement. Matter of fact, 08 it spent 1.8 of $3 million, 09 1.7 of $3 million, and in 10 is projected to spend 1.8 of $3 million. Now that's on child support, particular program, child support enforcement. Yeah. DHHS funded, and Callie said that actual program began in 08. So
It's been ramping up. I think you've probably gotten reports on that. It was a new program in 07 or 08, and it's all funded with grants through DHHS.
100%. All those numbers there are all DHHS. Children, Youth, and Family Service Group, slight decrease budget to budget, 5%, which that 5% is $500,000. Compared to 2009 actuals, they're requesting $1 million increase, and it's on the DHHS funded Children and Family Service. Again, a lot of this group is federal funded. Family and Elderly Assistance has a $2.1 million decrease, or 16% compared to the previous budget, and an increase over 09 actuals of $600,000. Both of them are due to the NAHASDA IHP funding for rental assistance and transitional housing between multiple year IHPs being budgeted within the same fiscal period. This is another time where we can experience large movements because of multiple IHPs coming into one budget cycle. The food distribution program has a slight decrease to the budget, 7% decrease compared to 09. One-time stimulus funds that are coming in compared to the 09 is contributing to that. Executive Director of Human Services, 29% or $633,000 decrease compared to the current budget. Now that's due to the decrease on the NOAA food distribution elderly nutrition building from $1 million down to right under $500,000. Compared to 09 actuals, that group is increasing 70% or $645,000. That's partially due to the NOAA food distribution elderly nutrition building not existing in 09, as well as a federally funded juvenile drug court for another $137,000. That didn't exist in 09. That's all the comments I have for Human Services.
Any further discussion on Human Services? Councilor Baker.
Norma, the $110,000 for burial assistance. We overspent it this year, $139,000 or something. We spent $139.
Yeah, let me address that. Remember, the 10 is projected based on 10 months actuals. If they spent their budget by 10, I went ahead and projected 2 more months at the same spending because I had no way to.
But we ran out of tribal funds for burial assistance, and we're asking for less, so I'm just curious.
We're really asking for more because we had, didn't we have 50,000 last year?
Well,
160.
We spent $79,000 in '09. In 2010, I think we started with 50. We did request additional money throughout the year as it was needed. It's being requested this year at $110,000. The 2010 budget's $116,000, so there is a slight decrease there. Right. We had. Go ahead.
Okay. From '09 to '10, we started paying. We had to pay more too on our burial contracts.
Right.
And so that was one of the things that kind of caught us off guard, because I think the year before we went to 50, we had been budgeted at maybe 75, and then went down, and then we really needed more. So it's hard to predict burial.
Right.
Just say that.
Yeah.
But we think that what we have for this next year should be, we hope will be good. We hope it's a good year, good healthy year.
Well, we were asking for a little less than what we spent, so I just.
This is a good program because it is so difficult, as you mentioned, to forecast what you're going to need. At mid-year, when carryover comes forward, if it looks like they're trending for needing more funds, then that'd be a good opportunity to look at that program, see where it's tracking.
If you could kind of keep us abreast of how we're doing as the year progresses.
We always keep the treasurer abreast. We hope you'll do. We hope you'll have some contingency funds for it.
Any further discussion on human services? If not, we'll move to government resources.
Number 14. Okay, slightly under a $5 million program or group here. The six to 800,000 unexpended for the last 3 years is in the government resource, largely in the government resource budget. Of the 827 forecasted this year, about half that's in the government resource budget. Of the 633, half of that, 323,000 in 2009 underspent their budget, and 260,000 in 08. The increase of 800,000 over the 2010 budget, 415 of that's in the evaluation and compliance department, 257,000 in realty, and 147,000 in registration. You can see where their funds are coming from, largely the self-governance compact from the Department of Interior. It's providing the lion's share of the funding. This group has significant, I'll say significant, 560,000 out of $2.9 million payroll is reflected in new positions. That's 9 new positions, 4 of which in evaluation and compliance, 3 in real estate services, and 2 in government resources. That's on top of 3 vacancies. One of the vacancies is in evaluation and compliance, and 2 in government resources. 7 of the 9 new positions and the 3 vacancies are indirect costs and DOI self-governance sources of funds. Okay, like I said, there's 4 groups here, 4 departments in this group. Evaluation and compliance has a significant increase, both over budget and over actuals of 09. That's staffing in the departments contributing to it. It's funded by the indirect cost pool of $670,000, as well as compliance budget from the 08 Indian Housing Plan of $230,000. Government resources is relatively flat on its budget. It does have a 33% increase in its budget compared to its 09 spending level, or $384,000. It's increased on essentially all budgets that were funded with discretionary funds, either tribal or self-governance compact. This department expended 79% of its budget in 08, 78% in 09, and on track to spend 73% this year. The real estate service department is a slight increase over its budget, and a 21% and 11% increase over its 09 spending. In 2008, the program requested $350,000 for a digitization project of land records. We've talked about that a couple of times in the last few days. The project's expended over $415,000 and it's requesting another $142,000 I say in my report to complete, but what it sounds like is this maybe not to complete the project, but ongoing expenses now to maintain the project. The funding shifted from the general fund, which is where it was the last 3 years, or 2 or 3 years, over to the self-governance. This department's also requesting new self-governance funds for land lease of $150,000 and fee to trust of $110,000, contributing to these variances from prior year budget as well as 09. These are a couple of the budgets we talked about that was that they were able to shift over to the DOI compact off of Gen Fund to help absorb some of those cuts. Tribal Relations or Registration Department has an 18% increase over last year's budget and a 66% increase over 09's actuals. That 66% increase due to a staffing increase in the 2010 budget that was incurred, as well as that new photo ID project that we've mentioned before in the registration department. That's all my comments, Mr. Chairman, on this group.
Any discussion on government? Not, we'll move to the Marshal Service.
Marshal Service, $4.8 million budget, had a $5.2 million last year. You're seeing a slight increase in unexpended funds. I do want to make a correction on this chart. I believe I got an error on this chart. If you look at 2008, that fiscal year, it should be $3.1 million of expended, not $4,026,000. Should be $3,148,000. And in the top part of the slide, unexpended should be $147,000, not $657,000. I went back and looked at it. I don't know where I got those first numbers. Anyway, the funding sources for the marshals, you see that they're pretty evenly spread out between the general fund, HUD, motor fuels tax, DOI self-governance. And their staff, yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, go back to the other slide.
Yes.
And I'm trying to recall this just off the top of my head, but so other would be like their C&E contract, right? Which I thought in the budget narrative that was increasing to offset some other loss of revenue.
Yeah.
But it shows that their overall other has decreased for funding sources.
That's a smart,
Other is some
Other.
grants, and sporadically they will get a grant. The Gen Fund column, the bulk of that is the C&E contract.
Okay.
880.
I'm just concerned, I mean, not only do I have regular community marshal service needs, but we've got Will Rogers Downs and we've got the Hard Rock facility, which is our largest. So are we going to continue to be able to meet all our community needs and our casino needs, given that we're decreasing the budget?
The part of the budget that's being decreased is due to the COPS Tribal Resource Grant, a federal funded grant, and from, I guess called a COPS grant. It's going down by $306,000. I don't see a lot of discretionary movement in their budgets, very small. C&E contracts going up by $20,000.
Can you remind me what COPS was used for? Was it actually personnel, or was it a one-time like capital acquisition
It's
cost for
more
like
of a
tools
one-time.
and stuff?
One-time grant. And I believe, I'd have to go back and check, but I think what you're seeing here, and I'm looking at Doug's book, page 4, the 2010 budget is probably when the grant was first awarded, and what is reflected in 2011 is what's remaining from that grant. They do apply for grants, and this one was awarded. There's actually 2 grants in their 2011 budget. But as far as their normal day-to-day operational budgets, they're pretty flat for both DOI self-governance, HUD, motor fuels tax, and the Gen Fund, which would include the C&E contract.
And there are no positions funded out of that COPS grant.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. They have 337,000, roughly 10% of their budget in vacant positions. 6 positions. Oops. 2 out of Gen Fund, 2 out of DOI, 2 out of HUD. The Marshal Service itself has 2 departments, Marshal Service and the Security Department. Marshals has a slight decrease, as we mentioned, due to the SMART and the COPS grants, contributing to that $450,000 decrease. The increase over 09 actuals of $804,000 is on the HUD-funded Indian Housing Plan. It's budgeting $400,000 or 41% over its 09 actual spending. The Security Department's kind of interesting because there's 12 employees in there, and you notice the commentary on here. It has no change from budget to budget, and it has basically spending 100% of its budget every year. And it doesn't have any increases in staff. It actually has budgeting a slight decrease in staff. And as I mentioned a year or two ago, the department's funding its annual merit increases for its staff by reducing its operating dollars each year. In this year's budget, it's reducing by a position. The salary and fringe costs constitute 81% of this total budget, with non-salary operating costs, rising, and the increased requirement for space and facilities. I'm surprised this program, which by the way is totally indirect cost funded, hasn't requested an increase in years. I can't comment on that. I just find it very interesting. This particular department does never increase its budget and its indirect cost, and it's eventually it's going to, if this continues at the pace it's been on for 7 years now, it's going to be 100% salary and fringe and not going to have any dollars left for anything else.
Councilor Buzzer.
And I wonder, Doug, where's the budget in there for some new cars for that security? Is that in that budget here? And you're right, you just said 81% was out of cost of fringes right now, so exactly right, I see the point.
But that's all I have for that group, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions or further discussion on Marshal Service?
Quick question. On where the Marshal Service has a contract with C&E, is that $878,000 offset in the budget by projected income coming in from C&E?
Yes.
And that's why it's privately funded, but you plugged in the other side.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Very similar to the Gaming Commission.
Very similar to what?
To the Gaming Commission, where they have revenue to offset their projected expenditures.
Is the revenue equal to that?
Yes.
So they're expending all their
Right.
costs, so it's a reimbursement.
What I thought,
Okay. Any other on Marshal Service? Now we'll go to EPC.
Okay. The Environmental Protection group is budgeting a $1 million decrease compared to the current year budget. You see significant unexpended budgets. One thing I want to point out, this is largely on EPA funded. They do have some HUD funds, you better show you here, from year to year, and they typically, you see that the 2011 budget for the non-EPA funded activities, other than that other group, is pretty well tracking to where they spent in 09. Now this decrease is on several environmental projects, and when you look at this group, they have so many different activities that they're performing on that it's kind of hard to really pin down. Now, the environmental reviews is obviously a big chunk of this group, and the EPA funded activities like clean water, Superfund, clean air, underground storage tanks, things like that continue year after year after year, and those, it's kind of hard to get any specifics on this group because there's so many of them they're dealing with. There is a economic stimulus impact to this budget that has to do with energy policy for $139,000 that didn't exist in 09 in the federal other group, as well as home energy audit from Department of Energy, economic stimulus of $361 that didn't exist in '09. Their staffing plan for this group shows $197,000 or 5 positions new with 1 vacancy. The 5 new positions, 3 are funded by economic stimulus funds from Department of Energy. Since these are economic stimulus budgets that are funding these full-time positions, I don't know how we're going to address, once the stimulus funds are gone, how we're going to maintain these employees, or are they temporary?
What are you speaking of, the retrofits? Those are existing employees. A portion of their time is being charged to these DOE grants.
New positions, budgeting new positions on economic stimulus funds.
I believe that's an error. I believe those are, if they are new positions, and Tom is on his way, I apologize, they would be temporary just for the length of the grant. Because all of our stimulus funds, we can't hire any permanent employees with those money.
Good answer.
Any questions or discussion on the EPC? I will move to the Gaming Commission.
Gaming Commission has a $4.5 million budget. Significant amount of these unexpended blocks on these charts from year to year to year is because they're not spending what they're not spending, they're not earning. They have an increased budget, and a lot of times if they don't expand, they can't up their billing.
Councilor Baker.
Yeah, and looking at that, Doug, is the unexpended, is that earned?
No, that's what I was just saying. If they don't spend it, they won't earn it. So if they didn't spend it, they didn't earn it. It's a budgeted staffing operating increase level, isn't it, from year to year that hasn't consummated. A lot of times there's the budget, as you can see, again, it's $4.5 million, but 3.1 was all that was spent in our last year, and they're tracking to spend almost just slightly over what they spent in '09. So you'll see on, by the way, it's all general fund, but somewhat earmarked. Here it is. You see the vacant positions? This explains it. Remember, if they increase their operations, theoretically, they're going to increase what they're doing, which is billable. So if there's no need, possibly no need for them to ramp up, then they wouldn't hire the extra employees. They wouldn't earn the revenue either. So, but we're still going to see these underutilization of budgeted dollars. By reducing this budget, doesn't buy you anything, because it's going to reduce the revenue that's associated with it.
I guess that was my point. You're budgeting that they're going to earn $4.5 million, what you're budgeting, but they haven't been earning that. They hadn't hired the employees, I guess. So they only earn what they spend. Is that they spend what they earn?
Basically, what we're talking about.
Jamie is on his way, but basically the Gaming Commission can bill certain vendors of C&E, and they bill C&E. I believe one year they actually may have had an under recovery of their expenses, but they are structured such that their billings cover their expenditures. I know that we just, in Rules Committee, passed a new gaming act. I think it addresses some of those issues in how the fees are to be structured, which vendors can
If
be
they
assessed.
find somebody or you think at some point there would be an under recovery, or that there would be an over recovery.
Right, I agree.
At some point.
I mean, I can run a report for you, but basically the way they are structured is just to recover their expenditures in their fees.
Or as far as gen funds are concerned, it's just a neutral item.
It's just a neutral item.
It'd be a windfall if they build more than they spend.
Right.
But that just go into the gen fund.
Yes.
Right.
How much do the commissioners make yearly, and how long have they been at that rate?
Sorry, Don, I don't have that information.
I can get that for you, Don, off the top of my head. I can't remember, but I'll email Lita. I've got that on my computer.
Has it been pretty steady for the last years?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I'll get that for you.
Thank you.
You see on their staffing, they are starting to kind of ramp up here on their existing. I've commented in here on the Gaming Commission about what we just talked about, and a concern there that the proposed 2010 revenue estimate of $4.5 million will be achievable. They had $2.5 million in 07, 2.6 in 08, and $3 million in 09. So to jump up to 4.5 from 09 to this next year will obviously, I believe it'd be more than just putting 5 new people on board. There'd probably be some kind of legislative changes, I guess, that would enable such a revenue increase. I'm not sure about the particulars of the Gaming Act, but that's being considered. Anyway, like I said, if they don't, I guess the easiest way to say it, if they don't spend it, they're not going to earn it. And if they don't earn it, they're not going to spend it. Takes money to make money. There you go. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman, on the Gaming Commission.
Any further discussion on the Gaming Commission? We'll move to Information Systems.
Information Systems, $10.7 million budget compared to $10.4 million last year. Not much increase. Compared to 09, it is a 44% over the 09 spending level, budgeting $6 million in contract services for 2011 compared to the $3 million expended for contract services in 09. We'll comment this is 100% indirect cost funded through. You can see, I'll say 100%. Well, 99 point something percent. You can see just very slight. Actually, there's zero in Gen Fund in this budget, and only $88,000 of IHS self-governance for part of their MIS funds from health. Positions, there's 8 new positions for that $392,000 on top of 6 positions that are vacant in the $325,000. And budget to budget, it's relatively flat, 3%, $348,000. But compared to 09, again, it's 44% increase, $3.3 million. Significant over 09 due to recent addition of a newly IDC-funded health IT. Accounts for $2.1 million of this $3.3. So 2/3 of this increase is due to the health IT function. And again, it's funded by indirect cost. The financial system budget is requesting an increase of $864,000 or 80%, following a big increase of $779,000 this current year for a recent system upgrade to Lawson. The department's requested significant increases for the last 2 or 3 years out of indirect costs. But obviously, as you can imagine, the support side of this department for a growing nation, especially the way the health department has been experiencing growth in the last few years, is required.
Councilor Helen Watts.
Move to approve as is.
Is there a second? Second. We've been doing this for part of them, and part of them we haven't. So I don't really see that it's necessary, but the motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor of approving signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Okay.
Move. Okay. Next, Career Services.
I only got 5 left. Career Services, $15 million budget compared to a $19 million budget in the current year. That $4 million decrease is nearly all in the Employment and Training Department. Day Work Program, $1.3 million. Some Economic Stimulus Supplemental Youth Funds of $824. And Department of Labor's OJT program, $850. There's a large $8 million unexpended in 08. Just to tell you, that 08 has 2 years of Talking Lead Job Corps grant funding, and it's the reason it's sticking up like that. Funding sources for career, DOL, heavy in Department of Labor, of course, and other. Their positions, $310,000 for new positions. There's 14 new positions in there. 9 of those are the day work program we've talked about. 4 in other employment and training, and 1 vocal rehab position. Now there are 4 vacancies, 2 in the day work program that's HUD funded, and 2 in Talking Leaves Job Corps. This group has 3 departments: Adult Ed, Employment Training, and Talking Leaves. The Adult Ed is relatively flat budget to budget, but Adult Ed has 168 or 15% increase over its 09 spending, and that's on the vocal rehab program. Employment and Training is a decrease of $3.9 million, and again, I went over the main reasons for that with the day work, the stimulus funds, and the OJT, Department of Labor funds, driving that down. Compared to 09, it's relatively flat with the 09 level of operating. Talking Leaves Job Corps, historically budgets were relatively flat, and again, it did this year. It is a slight 10% increase over what was spent in 09. That's all I have on career service, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion on career services? Yes. Councilor Fitchett.
Can you talk about the summer youth, what they did?
The day work? No.
The summer youth, in the summer we employ the kids.
In our current year, 2010, there's $824,000 budget for economic stimulus funds to supplement the youth employment that's not being repeated. Is that what you're referring to?
Mm-hmm.
This is the,
Can you say that again, Doug? I'm sorry.
that was the one-time economic stimulus.
Yeah, that's what it turned out.
Well, there's,
There's a lot of change on the day work program.
well, but there's also summer youth in the regular federal funding deal.
This one?
Yeah.
The PO 102?
Right, that includes summer youth. So,
Okay. You see the DOI Public Law 102-477 funding source? 1,998,000, page 4. Down close to the bottom. Callie said that has some funds in it for summer youth. You know how much of that?
no, I don't off the top of my head. The special economic stimulus funding was one time, but Diane does get funding for the normal summer youth program each year through the 102-477 or self-governance. I will determine, or I'll confirm which of those funding sources it's part of.
And those two are the same budget level as they were in 2010. The only thing that's different is that one-time economic stimulus budget.
Okay, Boys and Girls Club.
That's now contained in the chief's budget under charitable donations.
And it took a hit of what?
It went from 145 to 100.
Okay, how about the day work?
Day work, 1.8 million of gen fund down to 474.
I'm trying to.
And again, that's, I guess we can reiterate the, you might be, Callie, you might want to address this again, but this has, the programs that are going to be utilizing the day workers are going to be billed for their time, correct?
Right.
So whoever is asking for the day work help is going to basically pay a temporary contract or temporary wage.
Okay, last year we put the backpack program in here, and Diane ministered it. Can you help me find it?
It's back.
I believe the backpack donations was part of a regular donation budget, which is the one that's under Office of the Chief. It was not a separate budget.
How much did it get this year, the backpack program?
Okay. Yeah, Paula was just reminding, there was a separate motion last year during the hearings to set aside some additional money, but the Boys and Girls Club piece of that backpack program had already been administered through our $145,000 donation. Mr. Chair, I do have the information, I believe it's Councilor Garvin requested on the Gaming Commission. Their stipend has been the same for the last 6 years. The chair gets $2,000 monthly, and the other members get $1,500 monthly for serving on the $1,500 for a commissioner, and then the chairman gets $2,000 monthly. And we have a list of all the boards and commissions, and Paula can send that to you.
Is there further discussion on career services?
Are they going to be able to fund any of the over-income kids with this budget? I'm curious.
Are you, when you say over income kids, are you talking about the summer youth program? No, what is in here would be the federal funds, which would be subject to income guidelines, which is, that's going to serve the neediest Cherokee families.
Any further discussion on career services? Now we'll move to housing services.
Housing services, $27 million group. This budget's down about $7.5 million. HUD funds are down about $6 million of that. Modernization is about $3 million, and rehab's $3.5 million. And those two activities that HUD funds are going down is because of economic stimulus funds that were used in this year. You can see. Things not working. Never mind. Okay. They don't have any new or vacant positions identified in this budget. Housing group has four departments. One of them is the business enterprise, or Jolly Apartments, has no budget change, 31% increase over 09's actuals, primarily for additional repairs and maintenance and contract services. And this budget does earn rental income, $514,000, and is budgeting to expend all of it. The Housing Authority for Delaware Tribe transfers, same as it was last year for the budget, 643 over the 09 level. Due to the 09 was a single year Indian housing plan, and the 11 has two IHPs in it, the 2009 and 2010. The housing department has a $7.5 million or 30% decrease due to the effect of $11 million of economic stimulus funds in 2010 for housing rehab compared to $4.5 million in 2011. 3% increase over 09 actuals. 09 actuals is a net, although it's a 3% increase, there is a net effect here. There's a $4 million increase for those stimulus funds, offset by the removal of the Title VI debt subsidy budget of $3.2 million. The housing rehab office, $245,000 decrease in the budget, 3%, $660,000 increase, or 9% over 09. And this department's administering the housing rehab, which accounts for 96% of the $8 million budget. There's not much change there on the rehab.
Chair.
Councilor Butler.
I just want a clarification on housing rehab office, housing accessibility program. It was tribally funded, but if I remember right, that went over to HUD funding. I think, Callie, is that right?
I call it the housing accessibility.
Housing accessibility.
Yes.
David told us that it could go over to the
Yes.
HUD fund. Okay.
Right.
And then the minor emergency repair, I see that was down a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Any further questions or discussion on the housing group? Now we'll move to leadership.
Okay. Leadership showing about a $400,000 decrease. That's primarily in a strategy budget. Compared to the 09 actuals, leadership budget on gen funds increasing by $230,000 or 70%. Solutions is also on gen funds increasing by 54% or $122,000. This department or this group is bringing in for the first time several different budgets into the leadership group, and appears we have a situation here where there's instead of one department in leadership, there's 6 departments now in leadership, and most of them are limited to either one single budget per department or in a couple of cases 2. So you can see that the funding sources are not moving much compared to 09 on gen fund. It is coming down, like I said, because of the strategy department. And the staffing level is no vacant positions in here. And the first department is a culture department. New leadership for 2011 is 100% tribally funded. It's an increase of $22,000 in the budget, or 10%, but it's 600% increase, $202,000 compared to 09. And compared to the 09 is due to the recent initiative for Cherokee Citizens Choir Project, which accounts for 184 of that 202. So that recently initiated program for the children's choir is what's driving the culture. Employee development doesn't have a change in its budget.
Councilor Fisher.
And we've never had this program before? It's a new one?
The Cherokee Children's Choir Project, I don't believe, this
And
year,
it's
wasn't
never
it?
been funded before?
I believe it was in last year's,
Yes.
because at least there's been stuff going on. Remember Jay had something, and we had something, I thought all communities had something.
It started in 2010. It didn't exist it only had $10,000 to spend it in 09, so it wasn't here in 2009, and that's what's driving the variance.
And I was going to go on before I was interrupted, but my question is, I know they had tryouts because I've seen some ads in the newspaper. Is that not right?
I believe they did.
How long ago did they have tryouts? I'm curious about how far this program is into being here, since it's a new initiative and we're worried about money and we're starting new programs.
Well, may I respond? It's not a new initiative per se. The children's choir has been around for a long time. It's new under leadership, and one reason I think for the increase in the 2010 budget is at one point they were selling CDs and doing all these other fundraisers, and those funds were going into CNEC, Cherokee Nation Education Corps. When this program came under leadership, those funds were pulled out of CNEC for the choir to operate with. So that's why you see part of the reason for the big jump there. As far as the tryouts, those were a few months ago. I don't know if they formed the additional choirs yet or not. Todd is on his way over here, and he can probably address that a little bit quicker than I can.
Councilor
The
Baker.
program was operated at
Councilor Baker.
Sorry. And maybe we need to wait on top. I don't know. Does this include the youth choir and the satellites under this one budget?
I believe it does. I'll have to look at my book, but I'm pretty sure we pulled them all together under the one budget.
explain why it went from a $31,000 program for 08 and 09
Right.
to a $195,000 program in 2010.
Right.
Apparently it's hard by way, it's $16,000 by way.
Children's choir.
So you have a question for Todd?
Here you go, Todd. Took a big increase in this current year for the children's choir. It went up.
So Jody, do you have a question for Todd?
Children's choir.
No, I think I still don't understand. You said the satellite started in 08?
Looks like it. Todd, on this line item for the Cherokee Children's Choir pilot,
Yes.
does that include the youth choir?
It includes the youth choir and the district choirs. And
So that's one reason why maybe under contributions, we're not giving the youth choir $700 because it's all in here now
Right.
for travel and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and in 2010, we actually did a transfer in. There was a budget mod that was done, I want to say around in May, where we transferred in $30,000 from CD sales, and that's what the Cherokee Nation Education Corporation, they were collecting those revenues, and so we changed that process. So now the Cherokee Nation collects those revenues, books them as accounts receivable, so we can keep track of it. So that accounted for roughly $30,000 worth of increase in the budget. It's actually from CD sales, so they can actually realize the revenue off of our CD sales. And we're actually trying to figure out ways to expand those CD sales and try to increase, looking at different ways to market the children's choir and the youth choir.
So actually, part of this $194,000 is going to be earned.
Yes, some of it is.
So Doug, you want to continue with your presentation on this?
And also, I think from 2008 to 2010, I'd have to go back and look, but in 2008, that was part of education, and when we moved the youth choir into leadership, we combined some of the staff and moved some of those where the expenditures occurred, and that's explains some of that increase from 2008 to 2010.
Continue.
Did I not finish this, Chris?
Well, you were under the cultural portion.
Oh, I didn't. Sorry. Okay. Okay, it's all running together now. Okay. What did employee development? Okay. Employee development budget and community history program, neither of which have changed their budgets for this year. They are $421,000 more than they were in 2009 because it was a 2010 initiative for the employee development, and it's projected. I did want to point out it's projected to only spend $130,000 of its $400,000 budget this year. So, but it is a current year initiative, so obviously it didn't get off the ground at the beginning of the fiscal year. The JOM program doesn't have any significant change budget. It's got a slight $4,000 decrease in JOM compared to this is not the JOM program. It's a department that's been identified. I don't know if maybe this is an assignment issue here or something.
Yes.
I mean, you going to leave it in here as a JOM department within your group, or
No, that's one of those attribute issues, attribute
Okay.
9. It's this was one of the programs that was located inside education, and it's a minimal budget for the youth council, which is right around $8,000, and the Trail of Tears awards banquet that we put on annually near the end of school, and it's about an $8,600 budget.
will they roll up underneath this
Yes.
group? Okay. On the next page is the leadership or group leaders department, or within this group. These two things will move up in here in the future. Taj Leadership Department has a slight decrease. Now, this is 90% tribally funded department. It's a 5% decrease compared to the budget. It's $228,000 or 58% increase over 09 actuals. And the increase over 09 is on the leadership budget itself, and it's largely due to increases in salaries, contract services, and operating expenses to get that group off the ground in 2010 and 2011 as compared to 09. The Solutions Department, new leadership department for this next budget cycle, has no budget change. It does have a $122,000 increase, 54% increase over 09. This budget contains only the Solutions Department. Budget, it's projecting to spend $258,000 of a $350,000 budget, and that particular accounting unit budget has a history of significantly underutilizing its tribally funded budget. In 09, it expended $228 out of $412. In 08, it expended $230 out of $412. So this particular budget has a 3-year history now of underspending its tribal discretionary dollars. Strategy. I think it's large chunk of this strategy is being removed, $370,000 out of the budget, and compared to 09, it's being reduced to $100,000 and a $50,000 Sequoia Centennial for next year. And I don't believe it has any staffing in it any longer. Yeah. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Fisher.
Doug, can you go back to leadership, please? Can Todd expound on what that is? I'm looking at it, it says, I believe budget, and I guess it's funded by some self-governance health dollars, which we had a big conversation about them earlier, and the gym, and I think this is the guy that blows up the hot water bottles.
That is correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, can you come up here and tell me something about it?
Sure. What do you want to know?
Well, last year he spent $24,529. This year you're asking for $64,500. That's $40,000 more. And tell me about it. Like I said, I know it's got to be more than hot water bottles.
He's projecting to spend $24,000.
$66,000 last year.
No, that was 09.
They're projected this year to spend $24,000.
What's the projection?
Does he have some of his
And well,
time charged to another county?
it shouldn't. I'd have to go back and double check it. But basically, that covers GSA, his time. In fact, the leadership budget, the 1010-225, has been covering many of his expenses for materials and stuff like that. So we don't even actually, with this IHS self-governance money, we don't even have enough money to cover his expenses related to his program and the things he does. So when we brought him over, it's just enough money to cover his salary, money for a GSA vehicle, and one other item. But his supplies and stuff like that, I actually cover inside leadership.
It's not you, Todd. I'm just looking at this and I'm thinking, we're using these compact dollars as self-governance from health for this guy to go around doing these things. And we talked about the gym earlier, and we won't use them. That's the point I'm trying to make. That's about it.
Councilor Baker.
Yeah, quick question. The leadership item, 1010-225, 559, what all's in that?
Several staff. That's where we pay for the bike ride. If you look at the youth council budget to try to facilitate youth council members from throughout the 15 or 14 counties, the $6,000 or $7,000 is not enough to cover that. So I fund some of the expenses related to that, and some additional expenses for the I Believe program. And then we also have a couple of books that are in production right now, the Cherokee Book of Wisdom, a book related to our attributes, and that's what covers the majority of those expenses.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other discussion on leadership? Counselor Calvin Watts.
Thank you. Okay, first of all, I just want to say how much I appreciate Brian Jackson of the I Believe program's work. I'm sure that not everybody maybe is attracted, but I have gotten such tremendous feedback, and it seems to have touched, especially our young people's lives. And so thank you for bringing that under leadership and maybe bringing some different focus to it and allowing him to still talk about healthy choices, but also about the leadership aspects of what he uniquely challenges himself to do for us.
Yeah, he is often, majority of his time is spent on the road at different schools, and they call him, requesting him to come out and speak to the students that they can set lofty goals and achieve them. They just have to believe in themselves. And that's basically his message, to believe in yourself. And we used Brian during the first 3 days of Sequoia High School's opening, and he was the highlight, the ones the students really were attracted to and really listened to his message attentively. So he does a great job.
Thank you. Now, I did have a question. Are we now under the youth council? Are they getting mileage? Because I know it was a problem for our area. They should be, at least, we shouldn't cut them out on cost. Correct. And we've got the meetings set up where either they're rotating everywhere or they're staying in one place and they're regularly held.
Correct.
Now, will they be bringing legislation to us at some point? Because I was really looking for them to flesh out to be more mature as an organization.
Exactly. That is our goal. That's one of the things we challenge them as they identify things that are important that they feel needs to be brought to this body's attention, that they would help develop and seek some legislation possibly specifically related to the youth. So that is one of the things that we challenge them. This year we also started reporting out in the Rules Committee meeting the things that are going on once a quarter. Because we only meet once a month, we felt like once a quarter would be enough opportunity for things to happen in their areas and inside the schools to come back and report. But that is absolutely one of the things we have challenged them to do.
Just one last thing. I would be very interested that if they are out interacting with how I think they are amongst the youth, is to understand more. And I've challenged the council person in my area, Mr. Butter, Councilman Butter, that I want to know what are those issues that they're looking at, what's important to them. Are we missing the boat on an opportunity to help shape them better as a tribe and get feedback?
One thing I would like to point out is next year we will start our college and career council. We have our council ranges from age 15 to 24 at this point, and the students that are in high school have a completely different experience than those that are in college, and so we want to try to create a second council for them to share experiences from a college perspective, and then another council for the high school age, and then we have opportunities for them to meet together. So it gives opportunities for more students to get active and get involved inside the Youth Leadership Council.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there any other discussion on leadership's budget? Okay.
Thank you. Widow.
Next is the Tax Commission.
Here's all the boards and commissions stipends.
The board members may have changed, but the stipends are all since July.
Tax Commission has a $3.1 million budget. Now on this chart I did exclude the apportionment reserves, the transfers, and the tobacco rebates to try to get to an operating budget. There's another chart or page on here I think that's a little better explanatory for the operating budget. The funding source, you see the vehicle taxes is where the majority of it, with some gen fund. Staffing has vacant positions in it, $342,000, 10 positions, and they show to be vacant in 2010, but I think some of the recent expansion efforts, Jay, would change some of these historical budget vacancies. On page 3 of Tax Commission, you'll notice that although this budget is relatively flat, maybe a 1% decrease, it's a 38% increase over 09's actuals. And the Tax Commission has experienced consistent revenue decreases since 2008 and has continued that trend in its 2011 forecast. Yet it's requesting a significant increase in its budget request, and that table below will show that. Now, the expanded tag office locations that's recently opened in J. What did you say, J? It would be contributing to this operating expense increase. And I put that table on there so we could get through all these reserves, apportionments, transfers, to try to get to what are the revenues doing and what are the support costs doing to generate those revenues. And as you can see, we went from 15.7 consistently down to 13.5 since 2008 on revenue. Operating expenses have grown from 2.3. They remained relatively flat all the way through until this new budget of 3.1. So, and the difference there is what's available for apportionment and transfer to the general fund. So, I guess the point in bringing this is with the expanded operations of the tag office as well as the revenue slippage over the last 4 years, we are seeing an impact from this particular activity on the general fund and the tribal coffers. Mr. Chairman, that's
Any questions or comments on the tax commission? Yes, Councilor Calvin Watts.
Thank you. Do we have an estimate on how our revenues impacted because of the choice that was made? Because I reread our legislation and we gave, I guess, the choice to the tax commission on whether or not that we gather the tax revenue at Toby Keith, for example, versus somebody else.
Correct.
So what is that potential impact? What kind of loss are we seeing because of that choice we made on Toby Keith? And I'm sorry, I should have emailed you that because I knew I was going to ask this and I forgot.
And I wish I had those numbers right in front of me. I know that when I looked at it over the first 2 months, it was close to $100,000 in tax.
Each month?
No, that's for 2 months. And
So-
that was when it first opened, and I haven't looked at it over the last couple of
So about
months.
$500,000 probably easily just in
That
tax
would be
revenue
retail
loss.
and alcohol.
So is your tax commission going to potentially going to reconsider that decision? Because I think it rests with them.
Actually, we're working with the AG's office. It was brought up in our commission meeting last night, and we're trying to work on a compact or an agreement with the state of Oklahoma to possibly share that tax, since it does affect them and it affects us, and it is a non-Indian vendor, third-party vendor that has that, the Toby Keiths. So we're looking at trying to reach an agreement with a 50-50 split, possibly on the state's rate of tax, which is 9.5%, I believe. And that would be a 50-50 split if we could do that with them. So we are trying to work out something with the state to where that the leasee is not going to be put in a bind with the state of Oklahoma, but yet we're still going to reap some of the benefits of having that business on tribal land.
Can this come back? Does this need to be E&F or rules? Because I would like to hear more on this outside of the budget hearings and the legal.
I'm on rules.
You're on rules.
So could you report more
Sure.
in detail? Maybe
I could
not.
bring you the specific amount of tax that has been foregone
It's
since they
this
went into.
rules month.
Okay, I can do that because we keep a record of that. I just don't have it in front of me.
Very good. Thank
I
you.
can
And
do
then
that.
also a list of all the other businesses where there's potential.
Yeah, there's only 2 right now.
Is it them?
Meg.
But they're Cherokee, right? They're Cherokee owned on Cherokee, so I don't understand why we would give up that.
That was a question on that one.
Okay, I'd like more information on both.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can do that.
Thank you.
Councilor Fisher-Call.
Yeah, can you all talk to the increase in the operating expenses? In 08, 09, 10, the revenue went down, operating expenses went up. I'm looking at the 11, I'm looking at what, 45%?
Right, and operating expenses have gone up because we've expanded the locations. We now have the 5 locations, so that does relate to the operating expenses going up. We moved from the Gore office to Salisaw, and there were some expenses, moving expenses and different things that we had to do there. And then, of course, the J office, we paid for part of that expansion on that building up there so that we could open that J location. So there's been expenses there, plus the staff for the J office. So the increases has gone up in the expenditures. I will tell you that in my estimate on revenue that it was based on history, that it was an annualized number. So I did not put any additional revenue in there for J because until I see how that office does, I just hated to go out and put a huge estimate in there and then us come in a lot less. I would rather be conservative on my numbers. So those numbers are conservative on revenue. As far as the reduction in revenue, that had to do with the economic incline or decline that we had, and people just weren't buying new cars there for a while. It is picking back up. Through August, I just ran the numbers, and we've got about a 4.15% increase in revenue over last year for motor vehicle. So if I see those numbers at the end of this year when we look at those, if I think it's going to be a significant increase, then I would come back with a budget mod through Cali and ask for an increase in the revenue estimate.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion on the tax commission? If not, we'll move to the election commission.
Really no surprises on the election commission. You can see the cost of the election in 2011. All their funds are tribal gen fund. They have no new or vacant positions. And like I said, it's all reflective in contract services for the 2011 election. $448,000 increase over 09, $300 over the budget, and that $300 budget increase is all for the election.
Any questions or discussion on the election commission? Now we'll move to Cherokee Publications.
Okay. Publication has...
I'll give you a question. How much is the contract service line item on election?
$428,000. That's compared to $100,000 in the 2010 budget, and $50,000 was spent in 09.
Thank you.
That's all contracts. I don't have any further breakout than just the line item. Cherokee Publications.
Okay, Cherokee Publications.
Okay. Not much movement in Cherokee Publications. They spend really close to their appropriated level. They're 60% funded Gen Fund, 40% IDC, and they have some budgeted a vacant position in this budget. Out of 13, they only have one vacant. So it's been filled. We have no vacancies now. So they'll probably spend all their budget again.
Okay.
On the page 3 of the analytical, I think that should be 12 positions. 12, not 13. Is it 13? I was getting around there, and I don't know if there's people that are...
12, we have a vacancy.
Okay, never mind.
Any discussion or questions on Cherokee Publications? If not, we concluded with Doug's presentation.
Now, tomorrow morning we have something coming back on the office of the chief and health. Is that right? And education.
AG at 10:30.
AG.
It's at 10:30, and then at 11 is It's judicial. Oh, so that's Attorney General. 11 chiefs.
11 is chief. We went through the chief's budget, right? There was just a question on something that,
Right.
I mean, was there any of these that I didn't go through? I went through my report on all of them though, didn't I?
Right, you did. So we had questions on health.
We don't need a
Here
PowerPoint.
at 10, Attorney General at 10:30, and the chiefs at 11.
Education was at 10.
Education.
Well, the motion was health.
I thought health was at 11 and the AG was at,
It goes the other way around.
was it?
We didn't discuss education today.
No, but yesterday we tabled it until 10 o'clock Friday morning.
Okay, then we have health at 10 also.
Oh.
And
Health and education.
Melanie would be here anyway to discuss the chief's, the questions on the Office of the Chief's budget. And so we have 3 groups basically coming back tomorrow.
Councilor Baker.
Yeah.
Education, AG, and chief.
Okay.
Going through some of the things that we did last year that Cali,
Oh, sorry.
that are not in the budget this year, or I don't think they are.
Uh-huh.
Todd kind of answered the Cherokee Youth Choir. The Angel Tree. How are you taking care of that this year?
Are you talking about the 390 budgets?
I don't have the budget numbers. I'm just going off the contributions from last year.
Who does?
The Angel Tree donation, the council, if I'm not mistaken, you have that as a line item in your budget.
Well, we do that, but we appropriated $5,250 to help.
Additional?
Yeah, to tribal dollars to help that program. And I'm not finding anything in the budget to supplement
The Angel Tree.
Angel Tree.
Where was it previously? What are you looking?
Contribution.
Okay, it's in the church.
Okay. If it was are you talking about it's in the main charitable contributions? Then if it's not on that list, which is in your blue book behind the
and it's
office, then it is not in there. It's not requested.
Okay, but my question is, have you funded that some other place in the budget?
No, we get lots of donations throughout the year for the Angel Tree.
We've always been short.
Well, let me tell you what Financial Resources did this year.
Okay?
At our all-employee luncheon, we had a toy drive, and we collected, put you on the spot, a bunch of toys for the Angel Tree. So it's kind of like burial assistance. You never know what the need's going to be until you get there. And fortunately, our employees and citizens have always seemed to come through in the clutch to help us on the Angel Tree.
Okay, and the next thing is mowing in Children's Home. I didn't find it anyplace.
I'm sorry.
Moreau and in Children's Home.
No, that is not on the list. I spoke with Councilor Garvin earlier. We did some deep cuts on the recommended contributions. And that was like round 10 of our reductions.
Okay.
With the idea that that is something that we can come back with carryover when it becomes available and try to restore some of those.
And Merle Home, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the education program that they do. And then the Artists Association, you cut from 5,000 to 1,500.
Yep.
And they're not funded in.
They are not funded elsewhere.
Okay, adult choir. It was 10, it's been cut to 5. There's 2 choirs. Are
Right.
you proposing $2,500 per choir?
Yeah, that would be for both choirs. So it would be $2,500 each.
And Zoe Institute, cut them 33,000.
That was a large cut. That was Zoe got the largest chunk of our donations in terms of domestic shelters or women's shelters.
And then Helping Crisis is zeroed out, but are you planning on doing it with domestic violence shelters?
I believe that was our intent, and we can confirm that tomorrow when Melanie's
Can
here.
you check on that one,
Yeah.
because the zero out helping crisis?
Yeah, I believe we roll that in with the domestic violence shelters.
Okay. And if you could, what they're proposed to get.
Yep.
The survivors camp for the Hastings breast cancer survivors, we've been helping them for the last 10 years with $1,000, and that's zero.
Yep.
And Habitat for Humanity zeroed out.
Yep. As I said, there's a lot of reductions on the proposed contributions. Funding is not there right now. Hopefully there will be some in March.
Okay. Well, the last couple of houses that they built have been Cherokee citizens, but anyway. Okay.
Okay, Councilor Coates.
I just wanted to say, as far as the Angel Tree program, that I know several of our at-large satellite organizations make significant donations. We've doubled the number of organizations this year, and it's a good idea. I think we can enlist them immediately to get on it, and we can probably
I hope so.
have a whole lot coming in from them, because they're always pretty eager to contribute to this.
Just one other thing related to the Angel Tree. Last year, we had a couple of vendors step up, and one supplied like $1,500 worth of cash and another $1,000 worth of toys that they came in and brought. It was kind of at the last hour, and it worked out because we had some people come in at the last minute. So obviously, we have some potential there with some of our vendors and contractors and partners that could help step up there as well. And they did last year.
Okay. Any other questions? Not, I'll entertain a motion to recess, I assume, until 10 tomorrow, since we have
So moved.
nothing scheduled before then.
I'm sorry. I wanted to let you know there was a question that was asked before I got here related to the district choir or the youth choir tryouts. And I wasn't aware of that question, so I apologize. The tryouts will be held on January 4th, 2011. So January 4th, when the students are out of school, they'll be held here. And then there's the district children's choir. We will have a session for them on September the 18th at Sequoia High School. So this September the 18th, a week and a half away at Sequoia High School, we'll have an opportunity for district choir kids to come and get involved. So I want to make sure you guys knew that.
All in favor of recessing, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are recessed.